Okay, welcome everybody. Find a seat. The room is filling up. So here we are a week after tax day and nobody did their taxes. I'm so happy I have another 17 to 20 days to pay.
All right, guys. Guys who help us put this event together, the vendors, panelists. I think I'm going to start. Bob, you want to start?
Hello, everyone. Bob Pepe. I am officially a member of Flagler Insurance now. We have offices throughout the state. I sell insurance to real estate investors. Probably many of the investors that are here at this meeting have called me, and I tell you, the market right now, the people that are finding deals are buying. The refinance market, the lenders are just going crazy. It's a great time to be in real estate. I think there's a lot of money that's still on the table for the people that know what they're doing. And the people that don't, they get a good mentor like Dave behind them, and they can still really make some great decisions to set themselves up for the next 6 months, year, 2 years, 5 years. But anyway, it's Bob. I'll put my information in the memo section, and everything is in the DREIA website as far as how to contact me.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. When you do the message, do it to all attendees. Becky.
Hi, everyone. I'm Becky with Real Estate IQ. We are an off-market leads provider right now in Florida, and we have pre-foreclosure, lis pendens, probate. We'll have evictions when they start up again. We're not doing them right now. Code violations, delinquent taxes. So we have all those lists of motivated and distressed sellers that you can contact to purchase their properties. And right now we're giving away all of our lists for 1 month for just $1. So if you just go to realestateiq.co/FL clubs, and I'll put this in the chat, enter promo code DREIA1, you can get all of our lists for a month for $1. And then if you also contact me, I can give you your first 2 weeks of those lists as our premium ones. And our premium lists come to you with the skip tracing information already attached. So you've got email addresses and phone numbers for the sellers, a flag to tell you if they are deceased or filed bankruptcy, and also a close relative and their contact information. So I'll put my stuff in the chat. Please check it out and contact me with any questions.
Thank you, Becky. Hey, Erica.
Hi, my name is Erica with Creative Title Services. We are a full service title company. I have over 28 years of experience. We do all types of closings, A to Bs, B to Cs, flips. We also help with trust, and we also do short sales as well. We're available 24/7. Anybody in our staff will answer your text or your email 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. My number is 305-476-8733. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Erica.
Thank
Can
you,
you just
Erica.
put your information in the chat, please?
Absolutely.
Thanks. Oscar.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hear you. Can't see you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming here tonight to this meeting. The name of my company is Gaia GC Construction Inc. and Gaia Inspections Inc. We specialize in providing specific inspection reports for the properties that you get under contract in order to try to get reductions while before closing.
Really?
Anything related to construction, you can always contact me.
Within
We
5 days.
have plenty of references available through the DREIA Club.
Months.
Now, once again, Gaia Construction and Gaia Inspections. My name is Oscar Echeverri. Thank you very much, Viju.
Thank you, Oscar. Could you just put your information in the chat, please?
Yes, sir, right away.
Thank you. Michael.
Good evening. I'm Michael Clavin. I'm the owner of Adjuster Man. We settle large loss insurance claims. We're Adjuster Man Public Adjusters. When it's broken, burnt, or bashed, flooded, smashed, or crashed, you need Adjuster Man. We can help you be storm season ready by providing you with drone pictures of your roof and a 3D digital replica of the interior of your property. That way, if you do have to prove the scope and value of your loss to your insurance carrier, we're ready to show the condition of the property prior to the loss. We are able to show the contents of any of your personally owned goods, things like this. Weather's been really heavy, expected to be a very busy storm season. I'm Michael Clavin for Adjuster Man, and when it's busted, we'll adjust it.
Thank you, Michael. Jim Santiago.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jim Santiago from Independent Title, where we are Florida's best title company. We are a full service title company handling a real estate transaction from all the way from inception of a contract all the way to closing, and helping everybody once they purchase that home to refinance it as well. Anytime you're buying, selling, or refinancing a home, you do need a closing. It's called Jim Santiago at Independent Title, where we are Florida's best title company, and you get that Santiago satisfaction.
So Viju, do you have any properties left?
Yes, that's what I was just going to put in the chat. When you guys just check out my website with the properties we have, the few properties we have. I think I sold 1 or 2 today. So as soon as
Did that
they
one
come
in Cocoa go?
Yes.
Oh, Dave, that's your guy up there.
Yeah, I'm frankly amazed. What I see happening is stuff that we would never have put under contract before because they're too close to the listing price. Or we're doing it and we're selling damn things. So yeah, make offers, put them under contract, and you can always get out if you can't sell
Yeah.
Yes,
Viju sold a frame house this week.
them.
As long as the price is right, it will sell.
Yeah, and every once in a while, if the price is wrong, it'll sell. No, I'm just kidding.
It's true.
Not wrong.
You're not wrong.
I think
I'm Jim Pamplin, co-chair with Viju of DREIA, and we both want to thank our loyal business members, most of whom are here: Jim, Michael, Bob, Francisco, Oscar, Becky, and Erica. We really appreciate you. And these are the people that help us keep DREIA going. Dade Real Estate Investors Association has been in business since 1996. Viju and I recently visited the country club, our home, and they're not quite ready for us yet. We'll be the first to know. We may find an interim place. I know we're all anxious to get back together. One of the problems they have is they can't find people to work. So that's part of the issue. And I think that's going on in that industry. So we'll just have to be patient and look forward to seeing everyone as soon as possible. We want you all to be healthy and happy. So Viju, what else you got?
I think we can start, right?
Okay.
Properties, I put the list on the chat. Please, guys, look at the chat. All the panelists have put their information there. Let's go.
And just a reminder, you can find all information about all these vendors. Also, we have a flooring and window vendor. He's not here tonight, but that's always been very popular at DREIA, and his name is Luis Cabrera, and you can find him at the DREIA business members section. So be sure, he's so busy with all the rehabbing going on, he's very busy. So we appreciate Luis being a member. We hope you'll check him out. Tonight, Dave and Viju and I've Dave mentioned this at a mentor update recently, and everyone has been kind of walking around on eggshells about what's going to happen when the forbearance ends. And Viju sent me an article today I can never read. What did that article say, Viju?
Coconut falling.
Oh, sorry about that. He had a visitor there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Basically saying that banks are fixing the forbearance, so it is better for the people are coming out of forbearance actually.
Out of forbearance.
And banks are fixing it's so that it will be at the back end and working with homeowners to help them.
But in the end, Blackstone, there was a recent report by Blackstone saying that Miami alone had a 10% default rate, 30 days over on the mortgages. So it's going to happen, and we've been kind of dancing around it. But I think that it's time to sharpen everybody's skills on short sales. So we asked Jim to talk about it as a short sale processor and also real estate agent, not just title agent, real estate agent and short sale processor. He's done a few for us and they've been successful. But I think we all need a reminder, especially our investor students, data students, we need to understand the process. So with that, Jim Santiago, I'd like for you to take over. Viju, do you have, can you share a screen? Or can he share a screen?
Do it.
Yeah.
Make
So
sure
right
everyone,
after,
make sure everyone shuts off their mic so we don't hear
yeah,
babies in the background or whatever.
yeah. And right after Jim, Viju and Dave and I will take you through REIA facts and show you the numbers. Okay, so Jim, you don't have to worry too much about that. Just get us through the theory. Take it away.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen now here.
All right.
And hello, everybody. I'm Jim Santiago. I am from Independent Title, where we are Florida's best title company. I am a licensed title agent in the state of Florida that can handle real estate closings in anywhere in the state of Florida, as well as a licensed real estate agent. I got my license for real estate to be a real estate agent solely just to do short sales. We're going to be going over a little bit today about what a short sale is, why we're really talking about short sales right now, even though we're probably in one of the hottest real estate markets that we've ever been in. And we're also going to talk about some great strategies about getting short sales locked up, getting them into to start the process, and then we're going to finish off a little bit about how to find them. A little bit about Independent Title. We are a 40-something. We have arguments about it over all the time. 42 or 43-year-old title company. We've been we're family-owned business from my mom to myself, and my brother is now my partner. Anytime that you work with us in Independent Title, you're going to be working with a licensed title agent and somebody that's going to be able to handle your closing all the way from A to Z. On the screen here is a QR code. If you scan that will take you right to our short sale webpage. It has a bunch of great resources to figure out how to getting the initial documents started for a short sale, and will be great to reference during our talk. This QR code will be on basically every page that we go through today on my PowerPoint, and it's going to be a great useful tool. So let's talk about a little bit about me. I am not a licensed attorney, CPA, or financial advisor, and any information derived or found in this presentation is not to be construed as legal, financial, or accounting advice. If you have questions about the legality of any of this information or techniques, or anything in this presentation, please speak to and consult an attorney, financial advisor, or tax professional for any questions that you may have. All information provided here is for informational purposes only, is not to be used as interpretation of law or legal advice of the presenter or any associated of the presenter or any associated member of the presenter's organizations. Okay, now that we got that over with, so let's talk about why short sales now. Back when short sales were a hot thing, the property values were low. The banks were basically giving away their debt in order to get the debt off of their books. But now today, with such a high demand for real estate, purchase prices on properties are insanely high. In most cases, in a lot of areas, purchase prices are higher than what they were during a bubble, where somebody was getting paid to own that, to purchase that property. With the amount of properties that are being bought and owned, there's still a backlog of foreclosures from the pandemic, as well as the high unemployment rate that could significantly affect the inventory for foreclosed properties once the forbearances are over and the foreclosures get started again. It's going to be very difficult for people that get behind to get into a normal financial status. We've seen it happen in our economy multiple times, where people, get into something that they're close to being able to afford, and then something small in their life changes and they have a problem, affording that payment that they had. The telltale signs of properties being bought for over what's they're being listed for, people getting into large amounts of loans, even with lower interest rates, they're still getting into a very high debt amount with the properties. It just seems so much to me like the tipping point that we have to hit. And if we hit that, there will be a downfall in the real estate price, and that would lead more to a distressed homeowner, and in a short sale case in some cases, a short sale would be needed. All right. So what is a short sale? A short sale is a sale of a property where the current mortgage holder agrees to accept less of a payoff during the sale of the property for less than the balance that they are currently owed. Most of the time, a property is sold for an amount, and inside of that amount, for the total gross sale price, the seller has to pay certain fees and costs and debts that they owe. And one of those debts is the mortgage payoff that they borrowed when they purchased the home, or have a current mortgage on that property. If that balance is higher than the value of that property, the property will not be able to be sold above the real market value of it. Therefore, the bank, in order to get the debt off their records or off their books, will have to reduce the price of that payoff so that they can get the property sold, and basically take less debt, which is a good thing for somebody to buy, because we may be able to get a deal on that property. Okay, so when you're talking to a seller about the circumstances, about why they should do a short sale, there are some requirements that the sellers will have. That they need to be, the sellers must experience a financial hardship, and there isn't enough equity in the home, or the value of the home, to pay off the mortgage after the closing costs of the sale. Different hardships for sellers include reduced income from unemployment, divorce, a medical emergency, bankruptcy, all the good things that would basically reduce somebody's ability to pay what they had agreed to pay and were qualified to pay at the time. When a seller is doing a short sale, they have to basically provide a financial package and for submission of that to the short sale bank. Each bank does have its own guidelines, but the procedure is pretty similar from bank to bank, and using an experienced professional is something that will help you out a lot. Again, if you go back to the QR code for scanning, and you can see where our seller's package would be, our homeowner's package on our website. This PDF basically includes most of the initial documents that you're going to need. It's going to probably take about 80% of the banks out there's requirements for the information that's necessary in order to get the application started for short sale. There are additional documents you may need. You're going to need a letter of authorization. You're going to need a letter of authorization allowing the negotiator, either real estate agent, title agent, or the buyer, or just the third-party negotiator, to speak with that bank. That is sometimes one of the hardest points that we have. Getting an authorization, where the banks, because they have privacy regulations, require that the borrower gives authorization to an individual to talk to them and negotiate that debt. Completed financial statements, hardship letters, tax returns, W-2s, payroll stubs, and 2 months bank statements. In addition to getting the form signed, these are a list of documents that we really need from the seller in order to apply for that hardship and that mitigation with the bank. It's not always the easiest thing to get, but once you've gotten those items, it really will show that your seller has a lot of drive to get the closing done. Keeping them engaged is important, and making sure that they are understanding of what the short sale process is going to be. So the typical short sale process is basically getting the seller to agree to sell the home. They're basically acknowledging this. They're basically going to be accepting that they're going to sell their home and not receive any money from the sale. In some cases, we can get them relocation money, but that's becoming more and more rare. They're going to fill out all the documentation, and we're going to submit it to the bank. The bank's then going to acknowledge the receipt of the file, and this can take some time. It usually takes longer than 10 days, or sometimes it's even a month or more. They assign us a contact that will start to negotiate with us. And then we'll do what's BPO, which is a big broker price opinion. It's a very short form of an appraisal where they basically just take into, they just take into the comps in the area for the recently sold properties and adjust for sale of what the value of that property was to see if they're willing to take less money for it. Once the negotiators signed and the appraisal comes in, they then assign you a negotiator typically, which is the person that's really pushing it to get to the closing for the bank. The file is sent for review, and once it goes through the appropriate approvals of the people that actually own the money that is owed, they will typically request that the property goes into sale and is sold to a third party at an arm's length. So they'll have everybody inside the transaction sign an arm's length affidavit. Once we've gotten everything approved, the real great part is that we get approval letter. That approval letter states that we're going to sell the property for a certain amount. And then after that time, the seller is not going to owe any money. The transfer of the property will happen, and the seller will have walked away without any deficiency on them, which is the great part. So when you're talking to a seller about selling their home, figuring out this type of sale for that house is important. You've got to ask the normal questions that you would on any kind of offer situation. How much do they currently owe? Finding out their first mortgage balance. Do they have any second or third mortgages? Finding out if they owe taxes or tax liens on the property. If they have any county code violations, liens, or large utility bills. Personal money judgments can attach to their property. This includes credit cards, other property liens in the county. So if they own a different property that has a lien in that same county, it attaches to the real property, and federal tax liens. The last thing is to really consider, a lot of times we run into a situation with bankruptcy. If a seller is currently in bankruptcy, and it's an open bankruptcy case, they can't sell the property without an order from the bankruptcy court. But if they've closed the bankruptcy, then it's not that large of an issue, unless it's a really recent closure. So these are things you need to talk to your sellers about to determine if it's a short sale. If the balance is higher than what you're willing to pay for the property, that's probably a short sale situation where we're going to have to negotiate that debt for less. If the first mortgage is just at that property value line, and the second and third, if there's a second or a third, God forbid, a third mortgage, you're going to definitely have to add that to that balance, because to the initial mortgage balance, and see if the total amount equals a larger amount than what that market value is. If that is the case, then we're going to have to do a short sale. Okay, so one of the most important things that we talked about was getting authorization. Figuring out who needs to give us authorization is important. It's not always the seller. It's the person that we need to get authorization from is the borrower on the loan. So we need to make sure that we have a seller that is either the borrower of that current mortgage that can give us authorization to that debt in order to talk to the bank, or we need to figure out how he got that property and who he got it from and who originally borrowed on it. This is really something that is to be taken into account with probate properties. So if you have a probate, the banks cannot really typically talk to anybody, because the person that had the debt, the borrower, is deceased now. And we have to work through the probate process prior to even getting authorization with the bank, which sometimes becomes pretty tricky. And it's important to make sure you're working with, informed and experienced individuals to make sure that gets done. Once you've figured out who has that mortgage, getting the authorization signed is important. We need to get that signed as soon as possible, making sure that it's a complete authorization, and get it signed and sent to the negotiator as soon as possible, and making sure that it has the loan number and seller's social security number on it. Once we can get authorization, we can really figure out exactly what we need to do that short sale. All right. The next step that we're going to work on is getting a full payoff. The full payoff will give us the exact figure that we know the bank is owed. And with that, it gets rid of all the interpretation that the seller might think he owe, or might been told by attorneys or real estate agents that he's talked to, in the past, or people that he's gotten letters from that say he owes a ton of money. Sometimes the banks, when they submit a payoff, they just write off the interest, and then we don't have to do a short sale. We just do a full sale. And if you don't have to do a short sale, trust me, you don't want to. They take a long time. They take a lot of upfront work, and they take a lot of work, and they take they're not always the best priced properties because the banks really have an incentive to own that property nowadays. Okay, so figuring out city liens. Another thing that always kind of jumps at us is that the city liens on a property that is normally distressed can really affect how much we're able to pay that short sale bank. The less items that are on title and the more money we can give to the lender, the cheaper your purchase price is. If we can give them, if we can give them basically the full amount of money that would go to a seller in a transaction, it's a lot better for them to take a smaller purchase price because they're getting a certain amount with that purchase price. But if there are other things that are attaching to the property, like code liens for overgrown grass or work without permit or any kind of violation that you would do that would cause the city to come in and start fining you, it really starts to negatively affect the property and negatively affect how much you can pay the bank. So it is important to ask the seller right away, are there any city liens on this property? Have you been given notice of any violations? And we can make sure that we keep that into account and let the bank know if we need to take that into adjustment on the amount that they're getting paid. Okay, one of the last things we need to do after we get the applications and everything started is getting the property listed on the MLS. The lenders are going to require that it is open to market so that they can get the highest and best offer for that short sale property. They want to be paid in full. They want the properties to sell for as much as they can. If they list it, they feel as though they're getting at least a market value for that property. In the structures that we typically do, we mostly get the contracts locked into contract about the same time that we list it, so that the time frames line up, but we have that seller under contract to sell the property. To do this, you're going to need to work with a licensed real estate agent and get the property listed because they're going to have access to that MLS. Make sure that you have an understanding or a experienced real estate agent that has worked on short sales before, because it is something that they need to make sure that they cooperate with the broker appropriately. They understand the timelines. They can share that information with their broker. And also they understand they're going to start getting offers from the MLS, because once you start listing something with the word short sale on it, you get about 1 million investors trying to buy your property from you, which can be a good thing, but also can be quite burdensome. All right. So once you get the contract, once you get the property listed, you can get the seller to sign a contract to you. Typically, you want this to be at a very low price, but a reasonable price for the property. It's something that we're going to submit to the lender to say, hey, we had an offer at this amount, and this is something that they can take into consideration to purchase. It's a starting point. An initial contract is probably not going to be your final purchase price. It's something you need to have a conversation with your negotiator about ahead of time, and so that they can really have a good, realistic conversation with you about where they think the property value is going to come back at and what your contract price is. It's good to start low because you can get lucky with the price that the bank comes back, but you do have to have a realistic expectation in your head. With that contract being signed, you have locked the seller into the deal with you, so it does bring you and the seller into an agreement to sell that home. The short sale rider is going to add a little bit of protection for you as well as the seller, where it's going to state that if the bank doesn't come back with an approved price doesn't come back with their BPO appraisal price at the contract sales price, both parties can get out of the contract, or the buyer can come up and meet that price if necessary. So it is important to get that short sale rider. The banks won't look at the contract without it. So it's something that you definitely need to. You can get that rider for the contract right on my website. Again, at that QR code, we give that as a resource out. All right. So your primary start-off objective for a short sale, when you're speaking to a seller from the first time all the way to the last time you're going to speak to the seller, it's really about getting the BPO appraisal. This will give them the number that the bank wants, so you know what you're really working with for the purchase price of the home. Getting and determining what the bank wants gives you a whole bunch of information that you need to start structuring the sale and how you can get it closed. If the price is too high, you're not going to be able to get it. You're not going to be able to buy it, nor should you. If the price is low, you know that it's worth it to just close on it right away and then resell it instead of either trying to wholesale it or, maybe too quickly, because sometimes we have some limitations with those. But if we can close it and it's good enough price, there is a lot of money to be made, and sometimes with the short sales. Before you get into a short sale, make sure that you know what the sales price you need to be at, so that you can have that conversation with the negotiator, so that you're not wasting a lot of time on everything. If you are really thinking that you submit a contract on a house that is really worth about $300,000 for $150,000, and only being willing to pay $150,000, it's not really worth the time of everybody that's working together to get that house, through the short sale process. It's quite a bit of work, and it's a lot of upfront. It's a lot of upfront paperwork, filling out forms, and getting these properties to be able to be short saled. Just everybody should be on the same page about really where you need to be on the number. If it's just going to be too small, the banks aren't really flexible very much with their BPOs anymore. Once you've gotten the BPO, it's kind of stuck. All right, so some tips on short sales. Make sure that you're having realistic timeframes in your mind, as well as telling the seller realistic timeframes. It's really not going to be a quick process. The fastest short sale I've ever done is about 30 days, but that was extremely quick. Typically, they go between 90 and 120, up to 180 days sometimes, even longer. I've had some that have lasted a year, 2 years. It just depends on where we need to be, who the people are involved in it. It can be every decision that we make takes a 30-day decision from the bank. So if we decide to come up on price, they're going to want 30 days to review that price. It's going to take about 10 to 30 days just to get the applications in for them to review, and then for another 10 to 15 to 20 days for them to schedule an appraisal most of the time with that BPO. It's keeping realistic timeframes in everybody's head, keeping people engaged in that transaction during those timeframes is important. That's the keys to success. Keeping seller engaged with regular updates. That long time frame, they're going to be sitting there knowing that they're not getting money from the sale of the property, or a lot of money from the sale of the property. Keeping them engaged in the sale process is important, because they're going to need to give us documents throughout the transaction. It's just like getting a loan, negotiating debt down, the lender wants the most current information. If we go past another month, they're going to want another set of bank statements. If we go past another year, they're going to want another tax return. And if we go past too many pay cycles, they're going to want new pay stubs. So follow-up is key. Keeping the seller engaged, getting recent documents from them, getting everything to the negotiator, or having the negotiator follow up is important. Stay on top of everybody, and that's going to how you're going to succeed. Okay, so the most important part, which everybody's here for, is finding those. We need to finding properties that may be subject to short sale. Really, we're looking for properties with high mortgage amounts. We can scour the public record for those items, looking for Liz penances and foreclosures. Broward County and Miami-Dade do have great systems on just their open source public records pages, whose links can be seen at the QR code. And you can sort for Liz penances on a day. Finding a property that's just going into foreclosure and marketing to that seller is a good direct way of trying to find short sale homes. It's at least a good way of finding a distressed homeowner, even if it isn't going to turn into a short sale. Contacting them, following up, saying, hey, do you want to sell your house? You're going into foreclosure. It's not always 100% hit ratio, but it is something that is a good way to start. Looking for properties with 2 or more mortgages. This is a little bit harder to do in regards to just open source searching, but there are tools out there like REIA that can help you find that. Jim's going to help you a little bit after this, showing you how to find properties with REIA that would be subject to short sale. and he can really help you. That system can really help you find them quickly, market to them, and it's something you can really use to track down people that may be track down homeowners that may need to get out of their houses. All right, so that's basically my presentation. And if you guys have any questions, you can email shortsale@title.FTL. If you scan this QR code, it'll send me it'll load up an email right to me, and I'm here to answer any questions. If you send them tonight, I should be able to answer them by tomorrow. And I'm here all the time. I'm Jim from Independent Title. We are Florida's best title company.
So Jim, I want to sort of like highlight the things that the tasks for the investor, because first of all, besides finding the property, Dave and Vijay and I are going to deal with that in just a moment. But I think that they must engage the seller to be cooperative. The seller can't say, well, you can have it if you'll do all the work. There is work the seller has to do, and it's going to take some finesse. Am I right?
Very much so. You're dealing with people that are typically not in the best places in their lives. They're not typically financially stable. They're distressed, and contacting them and asking them for financial information is sometimes, not always the thing they want. They don't always want to give bank statements. They may not have access to their tax returns. They may not have their W-2 or pay stubs or social security statements to give you to show that the bank's going to require in order to start the short sale process. Really, it's about getting somebody that has experience in obtaining these items, and explaining to the seller why we need them, and really engaging with them on a constant basis. Because like I said, if we get into another month or we get into 2 months later, the bank's going to want updated information, and it's important that the seller is still actively engaged with us to get these short sales done.
So I can tell you from experience, ladies and gentlemen, that Jim is our preferred processor, but nonetheless, processors will have a package for you to follow. And it's important for you as the person trying to buy the property to follow along, because if you send it back to the processor or Jim, there's not much they can do. Now, Jim, we talked about this right now. One comment I got just now on the screen was, well, heck, why don't they just sell the house on the market? But I think there are still upside down deals, and we'll go through some in a moment. But what do you think is coming that's going to cause us to have, what's the possibilities next year, for example, in 2022, for more short sales? What do you think may drive it?
Well, I think that there is a lot of, unless they significantly restructure a lot of the forbearance plans, people are going to have a hard time affording these properties. A lot of the forbearance stuff is pretty vague that they've been doing. It's something that a lot of people have been put into so easily that I don't think that they were prepared for what the outcomes may be afterwards, and how much they're going to have to pay. Go back to their monthly payments of what they're going to owe for their real estate. And if any of their life changes, if our economy changes, the amount of money that they're borrowing on these homes is a significant amount, and it could affect people having the ability to pay. With such a backlog of forbeared properties and foreclosures that haven't been able to foreclose, it's going to increase the volume and the inventory that we have in this market. So
I've got a question from an agent, but I think a lot of people would eventually ask this question. Do we still have a certain short sales where the seller is responsible on a 1099 basis for the forgiven amount? Have you seen anything on that lately?
Yes. So the sellers are going to be responsible for, they are going to get a 1099 for the deferred or the negotiated difference. They're going to get a 1099 for the discount that the bank's giving. And that can significantly affect their tax returns. And it is something that the seller does need to speak to an accountant about or a tax attorney about. It's important that they file appropriately with those 1099s, because the banks are going to issue them, and it's something that is going to affect them.
So I've got two more questions. One related to the 1099 thing. I mean, would you dare to say that there's any banks that are preferable to deal with over others in short sales? Would you care to go there?
I don't know if there's any that are preferred. I do know that there are some that are more, that have a better process in place. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be an easier task. They just have the structure in place for a short sale, where a smaller lender doesn't always have the right servicing in place that they can, have a negotiation protocol for, what documents need to be submitted so that we can get them all up front and have a higher threshold for maybe some mistakes on those applications, because they do, it's a lot of paperwork to get started, and it does come with some mistakes. Some servicers have been, get everything in line, and some are trying to get the deal done a little bit more. I just did one with SPS. We got an approval letter basically within 50 days. It was very quick. And it was just, I've had problems with SPS, and then I had a good file with SPS. And I think that their process is changing a little bit in anticipation of maybe a larger workload happening of these short sales.
I think that's very interesting, Jim. Now, you mentioned earlier about second mortgages, or maybe two mortgages. And our buddy Wayne is asking, is there a potential advantage of finding a house with two mortgages? And what happens with the second? Do you have any advice on that?
It depends on the type of second mortgage, from what I've seen. Certain type, if they're federally insured second mortgages, or they were HARP loans, let's just say when somebody modified before and put another mortgage on the property for that modification, they'll wipe a lot of those. But where the second mortgage will take no money to negotiate the first mortgage. But in some cases, with a conventional lender, they'll stick in there, and the first lender will give the second lender some money. It's just really a case-by-case basis.
Right. So, Doug Fleshman, please send your question again. I don't quite understand it, and I'll ask Jim Santiago to go in and answer it in the chat. And thank you, Bettina and Wayne, for your questions. We really appreciate it. I think the bottom line is, you need, as an investor, finding the deal is one thing, and we'll get to that in a moment, but then you have to be disciplined and work with your processor. Jim is a processor. He's also a licensed real estate sales associate. And you've got to, it takes a village to get this done. That's the bottom line. And I think now versus 2008, as Jim says, when we start going to short sales, people are going to be ready with a process, and you better be ready to play along.
It's going to be important to be prepped for it, and just be willing to, have this in your arsenal as a type of transaction that you can purchase, that you understand to a homeowner, or somebody might say, the overwhelming amount of stuff that needs to get done. If you don't have that package available to you, you don't have the contract ready to go, you don't have all these things ready to go, it'd be a hard pitch to a seller sometimes if you're not confident about selling it.
So you can provide people with a package, right? They can contact you through the QR or your website.
Yeah. So on my website, you can go to my website, and we have a short sales tab right there. I put the QR code, which I can put right here as well. You can scan that, and that'll take you right to my website. I know I got obsessed with the QR codes lately, but this will take you right. This will take you right to my website. And it has a bunch of resources and tools, including our homeowners package. The package will include the majority of the documents, as well as a checklist of additional documents on top of what's in the package that we'll need to start the process. And most importantly, it does include that includes that third-party authorization form, which getting that signed earlier than later is always a key to success.
Well, Jim, I'll ask you to stick around on the chat for just a little bit.
Sure.
And Dave and Vijay, all I got to say is I hope our students are listening up. I mean, Dave Dinkle is our director of mentoring at DREIA. And, I would say now is the time to learn this as well as other skills for real estate investing, even though the market's hot.
I'll tell you what's interesting, listening to Jim, who is a processor. And if you're on our side, the investor side, you have to have a processor that understands the investor side of their game, I'm going to say, because if you just go to a listing agent and he says, we're taking care of it, his processor is only interested in getting a number so they can list it and get a commission out of it. But you need a processor that understands what price we need and how to get that price. And typically those people are not the ones you're going to get if you don't go to somebody that you know. What's interesting to me is I listen to Jim. Everything Jim has said to you is correct. But there's another side to it, and that's our side. For example, in the BPO, the question always comes up, how do I get a discount? Well, the real opportunity for the discount comes on the BPO. So the person doing it can submit it back with the BPO, your estimate of repairs. If you bring it in later, the chances of doing anything is considerably less. And sometimes they'll get an appraisal, like Bank of America. They have their own appraisers, they're on salary. And they're not all that generous in terms of, for your side, they're always too high. So there are little tricks and techniques that we have as investors to help it along. I have one that's I have to close on the 28th, where the original loan amount was, I'm going to say it was 340 something. The investor came in, got it down to 275, but there's another $50,000 of about 6 or 8 liens and garnishments and all kinds of crap attached to it. And she did what she was supposed to do. She personally went in and negotiated every one of them. And we're going to close on it. It's a $500,000 property. So, and those numbers are there. One of the things to mention is the approval letter. And this is like, you're all set, you have your property even sold, and either the day before or sometimes the day of the closing, the approval letter comes, and the last paragraph is the contingency can't be resold for a certain number of days, or the closing agent can't resell that property for you for a year. It's like, what the hell happened here? There goes my double closing. Boom, I don't have any money to close. But it says that closing agent can't resell it for a year. It doesn't mean you can't go to another closing agent and sell it. But there's a lot of little nuances like that I like short sales. The issue I have with short sales is you never know what's going to happen. They get a last minute appraisal 2 days before the closing, and they say, yeah, we're not going to, no, we may have sent you that letter, but it says in there we can change or stop the whole thing right up until the day of closing. And I've seen them do that. Can't do that on REOs because we've been in REO situations. We've gone back after the bank with a list penance to get them to come. They come back. But the short sales are tricky. You need to go with somebody that knows what they're doing on the processing part.
And of course, Jim always loves to get VJU's lowball offers, and we talk him up and we get reasonable, but
they're not lowball, they're below lowball.
Oh, come on, I'm not that bad.
He's that bad.
But I think the main thing with investors is keeping the sellers engaged. I think, and just not leaving it, as Jim said, it's going to take more than 30 days, and you have to keep the seller engaged, right, Jim?
Yeah. Let me before you answer, Jim. I have seen a number of cases where investor went in, got a signed contract, seller's on board, grinds along, and suddenly the processor comes in. We're going to close next Thursday. Here's the price. Everybody's excited. He calls up the homeowner. Homeowner says, well, I didn't hear from you for 2 months. I sold it to somebody else. And the other guy went ahead and did the short sale at the same bank through another processor. New file number, deal's gone. So it's critically important that any little message you get, anything going on, call them up, stay in touch with them. And the big sign is they don't answer your phone, they don't answer your text, something's going on. What do? You go out and door knock until they come to the door and say, gee, what's happening? And if you can hear them in there, wait outside until they come to the door.
We can avoid that a lot by making sure that we're double teaming the seller in regards to communication, that we're following up with the short sale needs and the status of it. And then you as the buyer or the investor are following up with the seller to keep that relationship going. It's important that we're all three, the seller, negotiator, and the buyer are all a team. It's something that we have to all get to a certain goal with. And if the seller really does want to do a short sale, it's something that we do need his cooperation for, and we'll continue to need it. It's not as though we just get a signature and we walk off. We need his continued, cooperation.
Every lender has his own short sale package, which are pretty much identical. But when Jim, I'm sure, goes to send it back, it needs to be complete. You can't send in the tax return and a week later send it. He's going to have to hold all of them to get them together. You're better off to stay on top of it, submit it as one item. Otherwise, they lose them. God knows what happens to them.
Mhm.
I talked to, they're called loss mitigation reps in short sale negotiation. I talked to her directly and I said to her, how many files do you have? And she said, actively, we try and have no less than 350 going at one time. That's incredible. You know, how do they do that? Not well. Sometimes they rush them, sometimes they don't do anything, but you got to have somebody that's in touch with them and doing them right, or you won't get them done.
It's important to have typically when I have a short sale, it's one of my first phone calls that I make in the day and the last phone call that I make in the day. I have a call list that I do files every day that we follow up on, getting through to that account, to that assigned negotiator is extremely important. Working towards that, knowing how to basically what I call Karen it up by talking, getting the customer service representative to give us that free meal when we've eaten half the sandwich. We need to get them to give us more information than they typically give other people. And if they're not willing to give it to us, we've got to kind of use guilt to get them to give it to us in a professional way, but also screaming, I want to talk to your manager helps a lot. So it's something that we will continue to push over and over again. And if without that, I don't think that I would have gotten near as many successes as I have without having to complain as much as I do to a customer service representative,
So, Jim, thank you for the intro. Yeah, go ahead, Bijou.
I just noticed Oscar is still here, and that's another team member who can help with the short sale, where Oscar can do a report for us with the defects of the property to help.
The reports are great as long as we get them to the BPO appraiser at the time of the BPO. If they're received afterwards, what my experience has been recently within the last few years, not just in the pandemic but prior to it, the banks have really made a profit motive of owning properties and owning property management companies that they can minimally take over that property, hold the asset, and make money on it. Where condition of the property, they're going to be able to fix the items that are small for pennies on the dollar compared to what we can, and they're really having a hard time. We need taking that into account on a financial level. We need to get it into the actual physical property eye line of that BPO agent, or it just really hasn't been affecting if we get it to them after.
I 100% agree with what Jim said, and it's important to make that note. If you cannot present our reports at the moment that the BPO or the appraiser is being done, you cannot further influence or properly document what they are trying to do. You have to give them that information right at the moment or before they do their part. So that way they know in advance that you are, quote unquote, very well versed in the condition of the property, so they cannot do much. Thank you, Jim.
Wait, I have a question. The cost of materials is significantly increased in the past year, especially the past 6 months. A lot of things have doubled or tripled. Are you taking that into account now on your repair estimates?
Yeah, that is correct. And we're actually working on a new set of numbers for our estimates. And they never actually sound any, I would say, crazy high. But nowadays, with the inflation and the new prices of materials, we're obligated to essentially every couple of weeks modify these numbers and just review them. What I'm gonna end up doing is linking the numbers to specific websites where anybody can actually see where we're coming from with these numbers. So they can have comparables, for example, in flooring prices, paint prices, window prices. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Oscar. And you know, Dave mentioned that earlier. You know, as an investor, you have to be willing to participate at the BPO level. And if you're using a processor, take their advice. If you're using Jim, take their advice. So Dave, I'm going to sort of gear up here for the nerd part, and kind of go through the mechanics of finding the deals. But again, I want people to understand why now they need to get ready. Why now? Because the market's hot. Why does anybody need investors? Why do people need wholesalers?
They all need buyers. And one of the things that's happening is there's a lot of billions of dollars coming out of Bitcoin and the stock market. And they're going into new hedge funds. And these hedge funds are buyers of properties. Their predominant source of buying the properties is not, we'll buy your home at market value and then they discount it 30%. They're going directly to wholesalers and saying, show me what you got. So they're constant buyers. Now, I'm not saying they're good buyers in the sense that you're going to get the most money out of them, but they're out there and they are buying. So they're stretching the limits of what the market's doing, but there are plenty of places where short sales, when you ask the question about the banks, are there any particular banks that are better than others? My experience is credit unions, out-of-state banks, and all Texas banks typically are easier to work with. State chartered banks have what's called, they don't have to go by Fed Reserve requirements on their loans. They do portfolio lending. So a set of the directors or whatever sit down at the board meeting. They say, here we have this loan. They pass it yay or nay. When it goes bad, everybody points at everybody else, but they need to get out. Why do they need to sell the properties? Under the Fed system, when you have a defaulted loan, you have to put up a cash equivalent to the amount of the loan between 5 and 10 times the amount. So if it's a $300,000 default, you need to put up somewhere between $1.5 million or more in a cash reserve. And that kills the cash reserves. You know, they have to put too much money in loans they'd be making elsewhere. So that's an intentional motive in the banks. The other thing that's happened is, I'm going to say 6 or so years ago, the banks have never trusted realtors. They've always said you're in cahoots with the investors and we want to get rid of you, but they don't know what to do to replace them. So they came up with the idea of using auction sites. And the auction sites have been interesting. There are huge opportunities in higher priced properties and in certain cases, like winning the lotto, so to speak. But they're tough because you're bidding against a myriad of inexperienced people. And they don't even understand the auction process. I've had people come to me recently and say, look at this property that's going to sale. I want to bid on it because let's say it's a tax deed sale, it knocks off these loans the bank was on there, but they didn't realize they have to have a deposit on hand before they can even make the offer. So if you're going to do any of that stuff, practice a lot and look and see what properties actually sell for. You might be astonished, frankly. So one of the things we want to do, Jim, is kind of look at how do you find the short sales. The other thing, just to mention to you quickly, I don't want to interrupt you, but we can also look at properties that don't need a short sale. And you say to yourself, well, gee whiz, if it's in pre-foreclosure, it's got to be a short sale. No, there's a lot of people that just don't pay their mortgages, oftentimes in probate, where the property's moving into foreclosure. There's a lot of equity in it. The bank doesn't get the extra equity. They only get whatever their final judgment is. And I'll mention one last thing. If you're into this, it's kind of a very technical issue, but to get a payoff, what we sometimes do is we do not go to the lender. We go to the final judgment amount, pay it into the court registry, because if you go to the lender, he's going to tack on more money. So that's kind of an insider legal thing about how to save money on if you're going to pay it off. But okay, so here we have REIFAC's dashboard. Jim?
Yeah, and you know, Dave, what you said is right. I think people are under the impression that 2020 didn't see a lot of foreclosures and that there aren't foreclosures with equity. There indeed are. And so Dave and Vijay are to give color commentary while I do the boring stuff, and I will try to go slowly enough. But I want to show everyone how many new cases were entered in 2020 versus 2019. Now, this is my REIA facts. This is what I call my dream sheet, because if I can dream it, I can find it on REIA facts. There's just, Dave just come up with this astronomical number of what you can do with REIA facts. So I'll just give you a little taste of what we do with it. So I pick my county here. I have to put any county because students never tell me which county they're dealing with. So I default to my county. I'm going to select single family. Now I can search for condos, multifamilies, anything I want to. But what I'm going to do to get the count is single families. And I'm going to go in Dade County and I'm going to click the foreclosure tab. And I'm simply going to look at the entry date between the first and the end of the year. So I go with my little calendar here and I go back to January of 2020. And then we go to the end of the year, 2020. Forgive the boring part here. They don't let me type it in, and I type well. And I simply hit search, and it's going to give me the numbers for single family new cases filed for the year of 2020. And I pray Dave says, never do this stuff live, Jim. So I have 978 new cases for single family only. Now I'm going to do a little trick here that brings all the ones that are for sale together at the top of the report. So I have, there's a legend here that tells me green is active and these purple and pink are pending, okay? So I've got 20 pages of 50. And this is what was filed in 2020. Now, what you can bet is a lot of these are still active because of what's been going on in the courts. The court's saying we're not going to process the cases, and the sheriff is not going to evict. So there are still deals to be had here, and I think the courts. I don't know, Jim. Did you see that that letter from the state court system that's asking the local court systems to move the cases the heck along?
Yeah,
I have. I did read that, and it basically told me that they're going to try to give the foreclosure cases priority. And the means of the short, people are going to be accelerated through their foreclosures. And if they don't get on top of getting out of foreclosure, it's going to be a quicker process than it used to be.
So I've got a lot of pages here. So the number in 2020 was 978. For 2019, it was higher. It was 1,646. So I'm going to show you what you get here. Okay, I'm going to show you what you get when you look at this property. It's in foreclosure. There's a handy foreclosure tab. It tells you the last time it traded. It tells you the mean value of all of the comps. In the foreclosures, it gives me the case number. Guess what I can do for free? I can go to the public record and I can read that case. Now, the known debt here, this is typically from the complaint that the bank has made, is 172, and the value is approximately 310, maybe more, maybe less. So guess what? There's equity here, okay? I can go to others. Tells me a lot about this going on here, kind of the same information, a very small amount. And just kind of goes on and on. The other thing, see, we're finding a lot with equity here. Now, some of these could be second mortgages. Go ahead.
Let me mention one thing. I get these feedbacks every once in a while of people who don't understand REIA that their data is no good. What I have to say to you, it's garbage in is garbage out. Whatever he scrapes off the public record, that's what's in here. So when we see a property with equity, the one that was 171 was worth 300 and change, it may not take into account a HELOC, homeowner's line of credit on the back end.
Exactly.
Or if the second mortgage was before 1997, it's not going to show it either in most cases, just because of the way the data is loaded into the public record from before. So if you're going through and you find that there's 150 that are not upside down, but they are in foreclosure, some of those will be upside down because you don't know what else is attached. Right. Don't worry about it. Don't complain about the small stuff. Just make offers or you're never going to get a deal. I talked to somebody today who's been in somebody else's mentoring program for 6 months, and he's having all these troubles with ARB, And I said to him, why does it matter? I said, if you don't make any offer, how many offers have you made in 6 months? If you haven't made any offers, ARV doesn't matter, believe me. If you're going to do this, you need to make offers, fail forward, and money's in the follow-up in a short sentence.
I mean, that's right. Our students within the second day, we're making live offers, because if you don't learn how to do it while you're driving down Main Street, you're never going to learn it. Now, I'm going to just do a search here. I hope this works out. I'm going to try to do a little search routine here for those that may be upside down. Okay, I may not do this well for 2020.
That's minus 10% is what you put in for the equity.
Right.
You're upside down by 10% or more.
Right. So here's one. Here's one that's upside down. The known debt is 452. The value is approximately 394. And there are others that have, significantly more, significantly less. But you can actually use REIA to search for these. But I think what's important here, let's look for this year. I can clear this search, and I can tell you what's gone on this year in Miami-Dade, and it's very interesting. Or you can see we have all counties available here, but I'll just deal with Miami-Dade and Broward for now. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select single family. I'm going to select foreclosure, and the entry date, and this time we'll use between. You saw all kinds of possibilities there. I'm going to go back and use January 4th and then today. Okay. Now, again, I'm just doing single family. These are cases filed. And I can tell you that this portends that we're going to 319 already. So we're on a pace to beat 2020 already. And again, only 27 of those have gone to market. I like to bring in the owner names here just because to make sure I'm not getting a company.
Yeah, but, Jim, on the ones that have gone to market, you have to remember that only means there's a contract and it's listed on the MLS, not that it's been approved.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. They're in process. So here we have one. This person is deceased. There's not a probate action, because if there was a legal probate action, I get a handy little tab here telling me all about it. But it's in foreclosure. It's not quite upside down. I'm not sure why it's here, but it's in foreclosure, and he's deceased. So there's all kinds of ways to search this. Maybe I didn't clear it. Now let me look at. Oh, this is not upside down. This is just new cases. Okay, this is just new cases for Miami-Dade County, and there's all sorts. Now let me show you that same search for Broward, just so you'll get an idea.
While you're searching, one thing to mention to you, if you're using REIA, you may get some extraneous results because you need to clear the register, so to speak, when you're done doing a search. It may hold data from before or searches from before. Yeah. Always call the REIA line and tell them if you're having a problem. They'll work you through it.
So to date this year, there are 413 new cases in Broward. And last year, in 2019 in Broward, there were 2,045 cases. So what we see is a little more cases. Now, one of the questions Dave likes to ask me is, Jim, how many are not owner occupied? Well, that's kind of easy to find out. We go to public record, and there's a place here. I never can find, owner occupied.
Yeah.
No. I'll just try that on for size and see how many of these. Now, Dave, what's the significance of not owner occupied?
It very simply means that the owner of the property no longer receives mail there. He's moved someplace else. So you have a mailing address of the property and you have another address for the owner of the property. So I like to say Elvis has left the house. Now, if you go out there, it doesn't mean it's vacant. There's probably his uncle is living in there, or his daughter, whatever. But it could be vacant. And it means he's given up. And there's a reason he's given up, because he doesn't think he's going to get any money or whatever else. Those people, once you have the new address, they're much easier to skip trace. The ones that are in the wind, like vacant entirely, are the ones that have to be skip traced. And typically there's more money in that, in terms of, I don't want to be touched by the bank. I want to be anonymous. But you found me, what can you do for me? That's the question you have to answer. When you call these people, if you say to them, I can save your credit, they don't care about their credit. They want to know how much money they can get from you. And they're all smart enough in most cases to tell you how much they want. So we're not going to get into how to do that, because in that arm's length transaction letter, part of it says seller will not get any money unless it's on the HUD. So
So I think that, I just think there's a lot of information available. Like, for example, Dave just mentioned, how are you going to find them if they moved? Well, I've got the case number right here. In the docket for the case is the service documents. It tells you that they were served. And guess what? If they accept service, it tells you where they were served. It tells you how tall they are, what they weigh. I mean, can you believe some guy estimating how much a woman weighs? That's not very nice. But it tells you a lot in the proof of service document about where you can find people. This stuff is free, people, and you need to learn to use it if you want to find people and learn what's going on. So,
yeah, let me interject for a second. The beauty of what you're seeing here, Jim has a doctorate degree in REIA, so I'm getting seasick. It's going so fast.
Sorry.
That's all right. The point of it is this. Not only can you look for pre-foreclosure, you can stack other things on top of those filters. For example, pre-tax deed sales. So you have upside down, not upside down, listed, unlisted, pre-tax deed sales, certain amount of equity, and you can literally go on and on. And if you're not careful, you put too many filters in where you bypass too many properties. You need to take a chance and make offers knowing you're going to fail many more times than you succeed. But if you don't make offers, I guarantee you will not be successful in real estate investing.
So here's one, for example. Now, as I said, if there's a legal action called a probate started, right there's my handy probate tab. Now, a lot of realtors are ahead of investors sometimes on these, but if they're not, you're in. This is not listed. It says by owner. It just means it's not listed with a real estate agent. So the amount owed is $387. This one's upside down, okay? And it's a probate. So you got to talk to a processor and Jim and somebody like that about how to deal with things like this, but they're out there and they're there for you to find. I can go through a list of 100 properties in about an hour. It doesn't take that long.
Yeah, let me mention something while you have this up. You'll notice over here that Wayne or Wine or whatever happens to be the attorney for this probate. All right. We like to look at ones that don't have an attorney. And I'm going to say to you, the best probates are the ones with the most complicated issues, especially amongst the beneficiary. I was telling Jim yesterday, I'm in a process right now of a proration in an estate where we have bought half of the estate, done, closed, we own half the property. Can't get title insurance on it, but we own half the property anyway. The other half has been in probate for many years, no reason, except for, it doesn't matter what the reason is. I can point to it on the screen. It's not him. The point I'm making is we can force a sale. And these sort of really, these are the things that I like to do with students, really technical issues where suddenly you can unlock a lot of money without even knowing it. That's why when I talk to students about a property, I try and get as much ancillary information about how many beneficiaries in the probate, for example, are they talking to one another? There's almost always one guy that holds out, you know, he's going to be doing this and that. And when you have, there's a lot of probates with reverse mortgages on them, and they're all insured. So how much can you negotiate a reverse mortgage that's 95% insured? You say to yourself 5%, but not necessarily. It depends on the condition of the property and some other factors. So they're, you know, one of the things that people don't understand, and I'm going to say it to you because I'm frustrated with it a lot, is they will watch 1,000 hours of YouTube videos, and then they'll come and say, I know what I'm doing. And I say to them, good, you don't spend any money on mentoring because you know what you're doing. 6 months later, they'll come back and say, I can't get a deal. There's a reason you can't get a deal, and I don't know what you're doing. Well, I bought another guy's course because it was really cheap, and I can't get a deal. Well, I don't want to know what the other guy does because it's not working. So I'm not here to beat my chest and say you need a mentor. But our experiences have made us a lot of money personally, a lot of money for our students, and they will continue to. And we're not going to go on YouTube and give everything away because then everybody would kill it for everybody else. That's what people do. So
Yes.
that's my raw story today.
Well, and Nancy doesn't like it when we give it away. So
True.
Also, Dave, just going back to that screen that Jim had, that attorney's name is also gold because it's a lead,
Yeah.
right? It's a lead.
Well, if you're licensed, you can always list it as well as be the buyer of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I can actually search the 2020 cases, Dave. I'll just show this for a minute, just for fun. I'm going to look at Palm Beach. I'll clear it. Let's look at Palm Beach. I know there are people who work Palm Beach.
For you guys that are watching this, in the center of the screen on REIFax, go back one screen, Jim, for a second. It shows you the search parameters. If you notice what it says, search parameters, it shows you everything that Jim has put in as he puts them in. Yeah. So you can keep up with it. Otherwise, it gets difficult to track everything he's doing.
So I'm going to clear and I'm going to look in Palm Beach County. And if I do this in condos, it'll be a lot. But I'll do this in Palm Beach County if I can get there. Sorry, I don't want to make Dave dizzy here.
Yeah. I'd like to look at one that has an HOA lien foreclosure.
Yeah. That's why I'm going to look in Palm Beach County because a lot of them do. And Dave, let's just go ahead and talk about HOAs as soon as I get this up here. So what I'm going to do is look at the 2020. But before I do that, I'm going to say probates yes. Okay. Now this will include people with EST in their name, I hope, and Brown. I haven't done it that much in
Yeah,
Palm
it does.
Beach. It does. Okay. So then I'm going to do the foreclosure, forgive my pedantic here notion of getting these things in on a little. We're just going to look at 2020, for example. I've not looked at this. And we're going to look.
Right. Let me mention one thing while you're getting that set up. Jim alluded to something before that I may have misheard, but he was saying that these are listed probates. The number of listed probates is typically 5 or not even 10%, 5 to 7% max of the number of probates out there. Most of the other ones out there haven't been done. We call them pre-probates. That's where the big money is. So if you say, well, I'm going to go in and get probates, well, you got a handful. But if you go in and say, I'm going to work probates, you have thousands.
And that's exactly right. And how you look for those, REIFax that makes it very easy. They say probates, yes or no. There are other routines and other ways you can do it. But look, here are 24 properties that went into foreclosure. Look at all the ones with the word estate. And I might pick one here. There's no legal action going.
Yeah.
And let me just see who's foreclosing here. So that's actually a bank.
That's a bank, yeah.
Dave, I promised Dave I would go through and look for the HOAs, and I didn't do it.
That's all right. We'll get them.
We'll get them. But one of the things the reason I mention HOAs is the moratorium affected lenders. It did not affect condo associations or HOAs. So what does that tell you? If someone is not paying their HOA, they're probably enjoying the benefits of forbearance. And if they can't pay their HOA, the HOA will take their house at some point. And so those are leads.
I'm going to interject for a second. For the people who have not been in the market for more than a number of years, there was a big issue. And that issue was we're going to make sure that the foreclosure auction is no longer on the courthouse steps. There's been so much fraud over the years and stuff. They decided they're going to go to an open auction, not open outcry, that's the steps, but an electronic auction. And literally within the first couple of months, people in Australia were bidding on condos, penthouse condos that sold for $2, $3, $4 million had a foreclosure lien against them for like $40,000. And they were winning. They're bidding not 40,000, they're bidding up to 100. They're going crazy against one another. And boom, they actually went on title. What they didn't realize is it has a $6 million mortgage against it, which you've inherited with the property. And typically when the bank sees the changeover of title, they foreclose. And I would get calls from people daily saying, I bought this house for $22,000. It's worth $700. We moved into it and now they're trying to evict me. How can they do that? Well, you need to know what you're doing if you're doing this. All you did was clean up the HOA lien, the homeowners association lien. I don't remember when it was. I think it was 2008 or 9. But there was 3 giant condo associations, and the attorney asked me to come in, meet with the president. There's like 600 or more units between them, and they're all sitting there squabbling about, we don't want renters, and these people are abandoning the properties because of the mortgage meltdown. Dave, what do we do? And then these guys are all presidents, so they all are in the know. They all know what's going on, and they are shouting at me, you can't do short sales because the Fed has a regulation. They won't give out the information, and we can't get letters of authorization from those guys have abandoned us. So I sat there and listened. They all argued with one another. And after about 40 minutes, I said, I'm not sure why I'm here, because there's a very simple solution to your problem. And they said, there can't be. I've been in the business the rest of my life, and there can't be any solution. I said, then why did you bother to come? And they said, well, the attorney told us you know how to do this stuff. I said, why haven't I been talking all this time? So what I suggested to them, and they started doing, was foreclosing on the property. They go on title, literally, if nobody bids on it, or they get their money back. But more importantly, if they want to just get the condo back, all they have to do is go to the lender and say, we're going to buy the note. And they said, one of the guys said, I tried that once and it didn't work. Every bank will tell you you cannot buy the note, but yet any bank will sell that note under the right circumstances and in the right department in the bank. I actually, in the mentoring material, I have a course on how to buy notes because everybody wants to do it, but it's not easy. And if you're going to try it, let me mention this to you. I have a student that does about $14 million a year in note buying and reselling. He spends 80% of his effort not on finding notes, but on doing the title work to make sure that when he buys the note, it's clear and he knows what he's actually getting. And in Texas, they changed the condo laws, and he bought a note which became worthless because he wasn't up to date on the condo change laws, 600 grand. So it can be done, but it has to be done by somebody that knows what they're doing. So be careful. Like, did you find an HOA?
Yes, I did, Dave. Just as you were talking about that, here's a foreclosure, and this is very typical. This happens all the time. The HOA is foreclosing. The owner is unfortunately deceased, but the foreclosure is $933 known debt for Leisureville. Now, guess what? These people will take this to foreclosure, but look here what REIA tells us. The guy took out a mortgage of $228,000 in 2019. Is that in foreclosure? It's not. Why? I don't know. Maybe they decided because of COVID they're not going to do it yet. Maybe they have a department. But I can guarantee you, if some schlub from Korea buys this for $988, I guarantee you they're going to inherit a mortgage, just like Dave said, it says the mortgage here was $228,000.
Yeah. Now, let me say this also. There used to be a strategy, and I'm sure there's some guys that are still doing it. They'll go in there and get on title. And if the condo association will allow it to be leased, they put a leasee in there. They go in there and they give them a 1-year lease. And if the condo association won't allow renters, they give him a purchase and sale agreement with installments. So in fact, he's buying the condo with monthly payments. That's not a lease. Hope the HOA doesn't find out. I saw one where they found out and they started fining him $1,000 a day. They were really pissed. So that's exactly what some guys will do. Some gurus are still teaching this stuff that's 15 years old, and it may work for you, but it may not work for you. So if you're going to do fancy stuff like this, what I see happen too often is a guy comes up with a new bright, shiny bullet, lease options. He blasts that thing out. He is a magnificent marketer, and he doesn't care about anything else except selling courses. I have students come to me and they say, I got to do lease options. This guy owns 250 lease options and this and that. He's stupid if he owns 250 lease options. He could have made 10 times the money by doing something else. But nonetheless, he's selling a course that doesn't work. And I do this all the time. to keep students from buying bright, shiny objects, I write courses and I put them into the mentoring program. So you don't have to buy stuff. You can go in there and figure it out beforehand before you spend money on it. So be careful if you're going out there buying stuff that sounds great. But I mean, look, I'll give you another good example is texting. Does texting work? Yeah. And when they started doing it a few years ago, probably 1,000 to 1,500 text messages would get you one response. Now that number is somewhere between 8,000 and 15,000. And if you're going to do texting, as one of my students had a $9 million fine, don't do it without understanding how you can get in trouble and how you can get out of trouble in the same breath. So I'm sorry, Jim.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
okay. I mean, you bring up a valid point, and you heard Viju, you all heard Viju say, you know, he's selling the properties that he gets. He sold a frame house. I don't care for frame house, but nonetheless, he sold one. And so that's why I asked Dave, why would you want to be an investor now? This is the best time to learn. This is a tough market, right, Viju? I mean, we know this is a tough market, but there are buyers out there clamoring for product.
Correct. And, you know, it's, we sell almost everything that we get nowadays if the price is right.
I used to, Nan and I, many years ago, started collecting antiques. And there's guys who they were called pickers. They'd go all through the northern states, Pennsylvania particularly, and New Jersey and New York, and they'd go to door knock. And they'd ask people, can I buy, you know, anything you have? And then they would come down here with vans full of furniture and stuff like that. And we would go out and buy magnificent stuff. Now, the issue is they went out of business. And the reason was their markups weren't enough. And you can't renew antiques. However, real estate is a constantly renewing resource. Probates, bankruptcies, divorces, all those things are going to happen no matter what. And this whole thing about the moratorium on the mortgages, the foreclosures and so on, it's going to pass. And when it does, you need to be in the marketplace. So,
I mean, I think that's right. And that's why Viju and the three of us, that's why we stay in the marketplace, because we've been through this before. I mean, you know, I've lived here since 1991. I've seen a lot of ups and downs. And I know no matter what the market is now, it's going to shift and you need to be ready. I think that's the whole point of this. And I'm not necessarily shilling for REIFax, but we have to have as an investor, investors tools. I mean, donkeys years ago, Dave, did you use ISC? It was the most modern thing at the time. And so what we have to use is the products that will make us work more efficiently. Like right now, I can actually, if I had the address for the air, I could actually mail an offer. I'll show you this. I could actually fill in an offer amount. I could put in the person's name, and I could email an actual FAR form. Did I share?
I don't know, but it doesn't matter.
Did I share yet? Yeah. So let me go back. I can pick this property that's for sale, and as easy as 1, 2, 3. You're seeing my screen now, right?
Yeah, I am.
I can put in an offer, and it's going to go to the agent. I press the button. It can go with Dave's proof of funds because he's our transactional funder, and boom, I'm done. Literally, as fast as I can push that button, the offer is made. So there's no excuses. You've got the money, you've got the technology to send the offers. What you have to do, and the frustration Viju will tell you about, is you have to make the offers so that he can sell the deals. That's that simple.
That's simple. And, you know, you just have to keep, if you don't make offers, you're not going to get any properties. So you just have to keep making offers.
Yeah.
You know, the searches I showed you, Dave has come up with, for our students, 18 searches, market, on market, and off market to find properties.
Yeah. So you're never at a loss for where do I find them. You actually have too many of them. But again, they're renewable and they're constantly changing. They go up and they go down, but they do that. If Jim has suggested mailing this to the listing agent, you can also mail it directly to the person in charge of the probate. But
Yeah,
if
for
you're gonna-
example, if this was not for sale listed, I would simply replace that. And I would simply put the email address for the personal rep. I'd send it to them.
Yeah. Now, let me mention this to you. If you're going to do this, don't mail them the 11 pages. And if you're not using the far bar, you're not in the game. Using one of those one page or letters of intent or all these crazy things that people think you can do it, but your chances of success are wildly diminished versus somebody that actually uses a far bar. And we lease the far bar, so it's legal. And every time I say this, you don't have to be licensed to use it. And I got into a thing with somebody in Deltona, and she said, I teach all of the students in this 4-county area that are going to be real estate investors how to do it. And you're wrong, Dave Dinkle. And I said, okay, well, here's the deal. You go off and check, call this phone number and ask them. And she said, I will, and I'm going to call you back. And I never heard back from her. And we're still using far bars leasing in the way we do. We do it legally.
Yeah, we don't steal them. We lease them. We pay for them. We pay for them for the students, and you can do it on your own. But I want to circle back. Dave and I and BJ, we kind of get off on these tangents because the business is exciting. Every day it's exciting. But I want to thank Jim Santiago because I have to tell you, when you need a professional to do a job, and Oscar, thank you for staying around, Oscar. We're all a team. We're all a team to do short sales, to do closings. Erica is always with us. Francisco, we're a team to get this done. And I wanted to talk about short sales tonight because I truly believe that you're going to see something new, maybe not at the end of 2021, maybe the beginning of 2022. We're going to see short sales again. But in learning to do short sales, you're going to learn to do all this other stuff. You're going to have all these foreclosures, just foreclosures that you can tap in and sort by day, by city, by zip code, by subdivision. You want to know what's in foreclosure in your neighborhood? It's easy. REIAfax will tell you. It's all at your fingertips. You just have to work it. I think that's it. And thanks again, Jim.
Let me just jump in. You have to work it. That's the main thing. You just have to spend the time, work it, pick your niche, and work the data.
Yeah, if you're a student listening in and you haven't been to any of the last 2 mentor student seminars only that we've had, you need to get in touch because we've changed some parameters. So it's important.
Yeah, we're holding mentor student updates every other week now because the market is shifting, the market is changing. And in the last week, we've gotten deals that we've sold. So we need everyone to participate. If you're interested in the DREIA mentoring program, you can find out a lot more, a special video message from Dave at DREIA.com. You can learn all about it. No obligation application. You get a nice call from Dave or Nancy. And it's what we do to work. We like helping people. Did you like selling properties? And we want you to join us, and we want to thank you for being with us tonight. Come on, can't you guys say anything nice? Am I the only one?
Come back and see us next time.
I put the link for the mentoring in the chat. If you guys want to just click on it, you'll see a video from Dave. And what else? Thanks again for spending the time, and hopefully we'll see you guys live in a couple months.
Yep, the third Wednesday in May we'll be around. Okay, visit us at DREIA.com and happy investing.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Take care, guys.
Good night.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Viju, Jean. Thank you.
Thanks, Oscar.